if you're looking to start selling on Amazon, then this video is for you. We do in fact have a full comprehensive how to sell on Amazon guide for free here on YouTube, which teaches you all the steps from A to Z. I highly recommend checking that out. Today, we're gonna be answering the top questions that we've gotten on that video here in this video. So this is a great companion to how to sell on Amazon. But if you're looking to get started selling, then this is gonna be a great place for you as well. So, do you wanna kick things off, Jake?
Let's do it. So we're gonna go chronological order, just like the video does. And we're gonna start with step one, finding products. And all the questions we got on how to sell on Amazon, our previous video under that topic. So the first question we got, Lenny, is how much did it cost you, so us, to buy the product, the washable pee pads, and get it shipped into Amazon FBA?
Yeah, good question. So how much did it cost to buy the product? Do you want to share screen? That's probably a good way.
Yeah, so I got this up in Excel that we can reference here. But if you remember, Lenny, when we first started, really just pay attention to this line one here. This is our first inventory run. We bought, let's see, 200 units, then 300 units. So basically that first order was 500 units, but we had it split into two separate shipments. At that time, it cost us about $5,500 just in inventory for us to buy 500 units. So you can see kind of how that's broken down the per unit cost here. It was $7.55 per unit to manufacture it. 30 cents to attach Amazon labels, because at that time we had the supplier attached, or no, you know what, this is actually Amazon. I believe our supplier didn't put the label on the product, which would have saved us 30 cents per unit. We now have that as part of our kind of agreement with them, but we actually had to pay Amazon 30 cents per unit for them to put the label on our product once it arrived into Amazon. Supplier cost or for shipping from China into Amazon was $2.58. Or sorry, that was from China to a port in the United States. It costs about 55 cents or 61 cents, depending on the shipping, to go then from the port to Amazon FBA. And so that gives us the total shipping cost right here of around like $3.20, give or take, which gave us around $11, I would say, on average, probably here, per unit.
Yeah.
But total, it costs us about $5,500 to get our first round of inventory.
500 units, yeah. And then by the time you included shipping and then a couple of other little miscellaneous startup costs, it was around about $8,000. That's pretty typical.
Yeah.
I think we were limited a little bit. At the time, it was kind of a weird time because there was a lot of restrictions in how much we could send in. But typically, if you're starting out, I'd recommend at least like 500 units is probably like the minimum, but 500, 1,000 to, probably like 500 to 1,000, I think is like a pretty common amount of units to start out with, depending on your budget.
And then a few things, if you don't maybe have $5,000, $8,000, a few things that could affect that is your per unit product cost. So just for manufacturing, ours costs $7.55. There's plenty of products out there that you can start at like $2 or $3, and then you tack on shipping and all the other costs to maybe get it under $5 or $10 even. So if you don't have enough money to do what we did, that's totally fine. You can just find cheaper products. You could order less than 500 units and start slow. That's definitely a viable option for you. But what we did, because we had $5,000 available to spend, is we spent that on inventory because we just wanted to get our inventory into FBA and kind of take advantage of that honeymoon period that Amazon offers new sellers typically.
Awesome. Alrighty, what's our next question here?
Yeah, so our next question is, should we avoid products that Amazon sells themselves? So, Amazon Basics, or sometimes Amazon has other brands that aren't really apparent. But what are your thoughts, Lenny? If Amazon sells the product and you're researching it, should that be a reason why you don't sell it so you don't have to compete with Amazon?
I know there's always been like different opinions on this. Personally, I wouldn't necessarily shy away from a product just because Amazon sells it. I would just follow the data. If you look at that particular niche and Amazon's the top seller and they dominate most of the sales, then I would avoid it. But if you can see Amazon competing and lots of other products that are competing and still getting comparable levels of sales, then I don't personally see any reason to stay away from it. So
definitely,
I pretty much just it doesn't change my approach. I just approach it the same way I would look at any other opportunity.
I agree. I wouldn't let it deter you, just like Lenny said, because a lot of times, at least for me as a consumer, and maybe this is true for you, is Amazon Basics is sort of like the cheaper alternative. So if you're thinking about launching a product where quality does not matter, right? Like a piece of paper or something just very minimal and you're just trying to get the lowest cost item, then that would scare me. But if you're selling something that customers value the quality of it or the functionality, or you innovate on something, then I wouldn't let that deter you at all if Amazon sells it. So just think about, is it a cheaper item that people want because it's cheap, or is it a quality item that people want because it's better than everybody else?
Yeah, one other quick thought there that could be an advantage if you're selling against Amazon is that Amazon isn't a small private label brand like you are. They're selling thousands of products, and most likely they've just mass put up all of these listings. They might have some like good photos and things, and I'm sure they've got their processes in place, but they're not going to be giving each individual listing kind of like the love and care attention that you would, really focusing on optimizing your listing and building out A+ content and really like honing in on an individual listing or a small like catalog of products. Amazon's just not going to be paying the same amount of attention to each of their individual products, which could give you an advantage depending on what the product is.
Good point.
All
right, moving on to our next question. If all my competitors are using the techniques mentioned in this video, who is going to win? And Lenny, I think that's the question we get all the time in different wording. Is like, hey guys, I just watched your video. You gave me the blueprint, but that video has like 1 million views. So 1 million other people saw that blueprint and they're going to do the exact same thing.
Except that they're not, which is kind of the answer.
I think that's the case. So our last How to Sell on Amazon video we did last year, I think it's like 500,000 views. I would say probably 1% of the people are following that exact formula that we're putting out there. And even if 1% is a big number, what are the odds that they're going to launch your exact same product? And what are the odds they're going to do it the exact same way you're doing it? What are the odds they're going to market it the exact same way you're doing it? And really at the end of the day, even if that number was big, which it won't be, if your product doesn't have competition, it's not a good product. Every product in the world has competition, except for the bad ones, because there's just no money there. So nobody wants to go into those markets. So I would say don't let competition fear you, especially if you're worried about people seeing a video, whether it's ours or somebody else's, and then applying those same strategies. It's really about you doing it, and then you doing it better than everybody else also trying to do it.
Yeah, the execution is very, very important.
Yeah.
I think with selling on Amazon, there's no, often people are looking for the secret sauce that's going to like make them stand out or make thousands more than everyone else. And it's like, honestly, nothing like that exists. It's like, pretty much all the information you ever really need is out there, and everyone has access to it. But clearly that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is your execution and doing the work. And it's like, even with all the steps laid out, there's still a lot of work. There's still a lot of variables. And so there's a lot of other things that determine who's actually going to win or not. And I think a big one of those things is just like grit and follow through. Just very, very, very few people follow through. There's a lot of people that like the idea of having a business, and obviously we would all like the idea of extra income or a fairly passive income source, but like kind of casually wanting that versus actually putting in the hours at the end of a day alongside all of your other, responsibilities in life. And like, it's a lot easier said than done. So, at the end of the day, only a small number of people actually take action. So it sort of comes down to, are you willing to do that? And if so, you're already like part of the minority of people that are, more likely to succeed.
What a good answer for someone who didn't see the questions before this live filming right now. I'm the only one that put the questions together. Lenny's just speaking from the heart on this one. He did not see the questions prior to this. But great question. That's definitely a common question we get all the time. So now moving on, again here in step 1 of product research. This question now, Lenny, is about, what are our thoughts on finding medium demand in medium competition products, as opposed to what we typically recommend, which is high demand and low competition, or more recently, medium competition as well. So what are your thoughts on maybe someone who's trying to like differentiate and, I guess like maybe the idea is like everybody's trying to go for those high demand products. So if I maybe come down a step to the medium demand products, I can sort of stand out a little bit, or there'll be less new sellers entering the marketplace with me. What are your thoughts on that strategy?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit harder to answer because it sort of feels a little bit arbitrary without looking at a specific product or specific numbers. Typically, though, I would like to, find. Typically, I'd like to find at least one high metric or element. Do you know what I mean? Like either I like this product because it's got really low competition, or I like this product because it's got really high demand. What we often talk about is that it's very uncommon, or it's like harder to find products that like tick all the boxes. Like, wow, so much so much demand, very little competition. I can source it really cheaply, not seasonal at all. It's like it's unlikely to find all of those things. So typically, you kind of have to find what is the best thing about this particular product idea. It's like maybe it's like really high demand, but then it's got trade-offs such as like high competition and a few other things, but the high demand you can sort of outweighs everything else. Or on the flip side, it has really low competition and easier to get into, but maybe the downside is it doesn't have as much demand, and therefore I would look at that and kind of go, okay, my reward's not going to be as great, but my risk is lower as well. Therefore, I would choose that product. So there could be like medium demand, medium competition products that are okay, but I would probably prefer to like go high or low in one of these attributes.
Yeah. One thing I'll add to this is, medium is very subjective. And very arbitrary. So we don't actually say a number. Like 200 monthly sales wouldn't be medium. There's really no number that you can put to like low, medium, or high. It's more so based off like what you're looking at. So if you're looking at 10 different product ideas, and you're looking at like the product tracker, for example, within Jungle Scout, you can rank based on the unit sales. And so from that list, you can say, okay, what's the average on this list? And maybe you bring that data into Excel to make that calculation easy. But say 500 monthly sales is the average. Well, then anything above that would be high. Anything below that would be low. Anything around 500 would be average or medium. And so look at your list, and it's totally okay to go medium competition from that perspective of, you don't have to always sell that top product with the most sales. Sometimes it is better to sell products on your list that, are around like the medium range or the average unit sales. If there's other factors, like you said, that are kind of making that the case, whether that's, maybe the competition feels easier, or maybe you can improve the product in more ways than the other products. But also, if a product is trending upwards and it's medium now, and you think that niche or that category of buyers are going to keep growing, so maybe something that's eco-friendly or sustainable, or just like something you can see growing in popularity as we years go by, then that is a good investment now, because it will grow to high demand at some point. So I would say just look at your list of products you're comparing, try to find at least 5 to 10, determine that average or medium, and then go from there. But there's no definite number of what determines medium, high, and low.
I was trying to think of another angle towards this, and one thing I'd say is that when you're starting product research, you're typically going to kind of be looking at parameters such as high demand, low competition, or medium demand, medium competition. That's kind of where you start, just to start assembling a list of product ideas. I would typically recommend mixing up all of these strategies. So maybe you find a few medium demand, medium competition products. Then I would change up the parameters that you're looking at. Now maybe you find some really high demand products or some low competition ones. And I would try a variety of different strategies to assemble your product list. When you get to that next stage of like, now I want to narrow down my product list, you're sort of no longer really going to be thinking in terms of, oh, I'm just looking at medium demand and medium competition. At that point, you're just comparing these products, and the comparisons and decisions are a lot more nuanced. You're going to be considering a lot more factors now that are outside or a little bit like deeper than just demand and competition. Now you're going to be looking at like, well, how much can I source this for? How good do I think, like how well do I think I can improve this product versus this one. You know, maybe this particular product has more opportunity to build out and do a product line. Maybe this product's a little more seasonal, and you're weighing up a lot more factors. So when it gets to that stage, the high level demand competition factors are less important anyway. You're kind of going that next level down. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, good question. All right, let's move on to our next question, which is, does the product have to be approved by Amazon if using FBA? This is a great question because there's so many products out there that are easier to sell because Amazon has restrictions against other categories. Like, you know, the baby category is one that you have to have some sort of like testing done to your products to be approved to sell that product. There's certain electronics or certain I'm trying to think of other niches or categories, but there are certainly restrictions for some products where you do either have to submit like whether you did testing or you have a certificate for something. So that's why we recommend avoiding those if you're just getting started. Unless you're like really passionate about those types of products and you're willing to go with the certifications or the testings done. But for most products, like our washable pee pads for dogs, we did not need to get that approved by Amazon. We just needed to launch the product. There was no really legal hoops to go through or anything we needed to submit other than our UPC barcode, which we'll get to that in a little bit later. Yeah.
To pretty much just like sum up what you've said, there's thousands of products that you can sell on Amazon that don't have any restrictions around them. However, there are some categories or groups of products that do. Generally, I think it's like pretty straightforward what types of products, like pretty much like common sense a lot of the time. Like, okay, it's like baby products or toys or certainly like food and supplement type products. But what I'd recommend doing is maybe going to Google, for example, and just like typing in the name of your product and then just like type in like certification or something like that. And I think with a little bit of digging, you'll be able to find out fairly quickly if you need something. I'm not saying that that's like the end all be all, that's all you should do, but that when you're just looking at product ideas, that might be a quick way to give you a bit of an idea whether or not there might be certification required. Also, if you're inside of Seller Central and you go to add product, you can actually type in, kind of like search for the name of the product that you're considering, and then it will show the category tree, the category that you would be selling in, and then it will show you if that category requires additional approval on Amazon. So that's a tip that I would always recommend, is just go to that, that step and see whether that particular category is gated by Amazon. And if it is, it might be easier to, sell a product that doesn't require you to get ungated.
Yeah, good question. Also, I don't know if you noticed, there's people actually submitting these questions. So we're gonna be doing more of these live Q&A videos on a regular basis. So if you want your questions answered, which we are gonna answer your guys' questions live here in the chat, but just going in the future, go ahead and submit any type of question you have on any of our YouTube videos, and we'll make sure to hopefully add that to our next live video. But cool. One more question before we go into step 2, which is about finding suppliers. And then before we get into step 2, we will answer your questions here live. So in step 1 here, the last question is, Lenny, what's the difference between Amazon and Jungle Scout sales estimates? And for those who don't know, Amazon does have sales estimates newly added on the search engine results page. So when you type in a term, sometimes you will see under certain products the average or the sales over the past 30 days. They're sort of testing this, and they've been testing it for a few months. Not every product has it, not every search term has it, but some products do have like an estimated sales next to it, like where the reviews are. And then obviously Jungle Scout has our sales estimates that we've been providing since 2015 or even before then. So yeah, I have some thoughts, but curious to hear what you think about the difference between those two.
Yeah, very high level. Well, first up, Jungle Scout sales estimates are intended for Amazon sellers, people that are looking to turn this into a business and are looking for that sort of market intelligence. The idea behind Amazon sales estimates is more of like a shopper experience to kind of like they're testing out this data to see if it can help improve the shopper's experience and helping them with their purchasing decision. Now, can it still be useful for Amazon sellers? Yeah, I think directionally it can still be useful. But the biggest difference I see between Amazon and Jungle Scout's sales estimates is that Jungle Scouts are a lot more, why can't I think of the word? They're a lot more exact, or a lot more specific.
Right.
You notice when you look on any page on Amazon, it's basically in like multiples of like 100 or more. So it's like this product sells 500 or more, or 1,000 or more, or 600. And so you're not getting the very specific numbers like you would with Jungle Scout. Also, it's one point in time. You're not getting historical data and being able to track that over time. If you absolutely had no money for a tool like Jungle Scout, then I think directionally it could be helpful. You could just like search for a niche and you can kind of get a sense by looking at that number for a lot of products on that page to get a bit of a sense of the demand in that particular niche. But if you want to get more exact numbers and you want to be able to see all of that data over time, then you really need a tool like Jungle Scout in order to do that. So yeah, those are my thoughts, but I'm curious to hear yours.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that biggest point there is what you just said is Amazon's reviews, what they're showing is for consumers. It's sort of a way for them to almost replace review count. As a consumer, you're looking at reviews. This product has 100 reviews, 500 reviews. Okay, I'm confident in that product versus another product with 5 reviews. But sometimes those products with 5 to 10 reviews are actually selling a lot. So Amazon wants to kind of help those smaller sellers or those smaller review products by showing, hey, this product does get a lot of sales. You should be confident as a buyer buying this product. But like Lenny mentioned, on the seller side, it's way more important to see historical sales and to be able to track that on a graph like you can do with our extension. If you saw our last House on Amazon video, or really most of our product research content here on YouTube, we talk so much about not just using the extension data, which is a snapshot, a moment in time of the data the last time we captured it, which is usually within the last 24 hours. That's a little bit dangerous because it's only showing you that time. What we actually recommend doing is using our rank tracker tool, which allows you to track products and put them in different groups, and then you can look at the data over a 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month look back window. And so what I like to do is go to the 6 month look back window, which will basically just average the sales over that time, which is a much longer period than just one day, and use that to guide my what I'm thinking about demand, because whether a product's seasonal or for whatever reason it just kind of blows up during a month or a week, that's not going to give you the most accurate data you need to just really be confident about that product. So I guess what it comes down to is what Jungle Scout does very well is it shows you that data over time. It's scary accurate. I would show it here. I'm kind of having a hard time with my screen shares right now, but yesterday while preparing for this question, I was curious. So I looked up washable pee pads for dogs. I found our product, which obviously I can look in the back end and see our sales. I think in the last month we sold like 400 units or something like that. Amazon said we sold 300 units, and Jungle Scout said we sold, it was like I think like a little bit over 400. Like, it was scary accurate. It was basically the same distance away from Amazon's as ours. So it is pretty accurate what Amazon's doing, but it just kind of lacks the capabilities that sellers need to track over time and to kind of put them in other tools and play around with it. So that, to me, I think would be the biggest difference between Amazon and Jungle Scout. It's just who it's for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Are we going to go to some live questions now?
You know what, real quick, actually, before we do that, if you don't mind, like,
Yes.
down in the video description, we haven't called this out yet, but Jungle Scout is running a deal that expires, is it the end of this month?
Yes.
So the end of this month. If you're watching now, highly recommend checking out that link, because we have this deal only running for, one more week now, where you're gonna get some really good deals on our Suite 3-month or Suite Annual plus Freedom Builder Bootcamp. So Suite Annual is our most popular plan, where if you pay for it over the course of 12 months, you'll get a huge discount, which you can see here. And then obviously this deal is even making it more affordable. Freedom Builder Bootcamp, for those who don't know, we'll talk about this later, is a full training course by Greg Mercer, the founder and CEO of Jungle Scout, that he walks you through every single step of selling on Amazon. And there's a bunch of content in there that will take you months to get through. It's typically, as you can see here, paired with the Jungle Scout Suite plan, a little over $1,500, but now it's a steal for $700. So again, this deal is going to run out soon. Apologies to you or whoever has to edit this after the after the deadline for this, which is the end of January. But if you're watching this now before February, highly recommend checking out that deal to get Jungle Scout at an insane deal.
Awesome. All right, let's jump to a couple of live questions here. There's a bunch coming in, so we'll aim to kind of get to everyone's here.
Awesome.
But yeah, we'll do this like little lightning round. And so okay, I can't get it up on screen, but the question is from Squid Gaming. What is the minimum age for the whole process of private label? Like, do I need to be a certain age to get trademarks and buy on Alibaba? Now, shout out to someone in the comments that I think answered this and basically said, typically you need to be 18 for everything. Now, I actually don't know the answer, but that to me sounds like that's probably the right answer.
At least in the US.
Yeah.
Some other countries might have different ages requirements, but at least in the US, I think it's 18.
Yep. Great. Another question here from Azhar. Does PPC help us to rank organically? Short answer is yes, and that's once you get a little more into PPC advertising, that's like one of the things that you're thinking about a lot, or like one of the big reasons to use PPC advertising. There's the sort of immediate sales that you get. So you might be like, okay, I'm spending $10 to get a $25 sale. Right. And so that's obviously part of it, is the sales that you're getting directly from your ad spend. But then there's these other benefits, such as every time you get a sale through a specific search term. So someone typed in washable pee pads for dogs, they saw the ad for our product, click on it, buy it. That tells Amazon that our product is relevant for that keyword. And over time, if you get enough sales, that can help influence your organic ranking on that keyword, so that you then start to just get sales for free. So the answer is yes, and we're not going to go into a whole PPC masterclass now, but that's definitely something that you want to be considering or thinking about with your advertising.
Get one up here. This is from Luca. Luca asks, is it okay if I just buy 10 to 30 products on my first round of shipments? Is that too low? Because he only has a budget of $400. Typically we do recommend spending a couple thousand on your first launch, but I actually wouldn't let that stop you. If that's all you have, get going now. It's not the most ideal state where you're obviously going to run out of inventory, but you're not going to have customers begging for you to come back in stock right away. So if that's all you have, get going now. And then once you do run out of stock, that's completely fine. Once you can afford the next round of inventory, you'll slowly build up your listing over time. It will be slower than if you had a couple $1,000s, but if that's all you have, then yeah, definitely run a test on it. I think a 10 to 30 unit test trial is definitely good to just like get your feet wet on Amazon, and maybe you'll get a couple reviews out of that as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's like any other value to give there. I would maybe almost go in a slightly different direction, where rather than having a dollar budget, I would have a unit amount. I think 10 to 30 units could be challenging. I would say that like starting with a smaller amount, to your point, is okay. To just kind of like verify the market. It's like you're pretty much guaranteed to run out of stock, and you're going to have to raise more money to order more inventory anyway. So you likely will need to raise more money anyway. But the advantage of like sending in a smaller amount is that you might be able to like make that first sale, and kind of, getting that first sale is really encouraging, and it kind of tells you that like, oh wow, okay, this is real, this can actually work, and that I can actually get some sales with a product that or a listing that's brand new. So I definitely think there's advantages there. 30 units might be kind of tough. I'd maybe aim to try to get at least 50 to 100 units, which is still like a smaller amount, but with 50 to 100 units, it might just be a little bit easier, because you quite likely are going to need to, discount your product, run some advertising. Yeah, I'm trying to think it through. Maybe up to like 50 units. But I think overall your point of just kind of like get started, test the market, but just know that you will need to then raise enough money to get in another shipment. And for that following shipment, you probably don't want to run out of stock immediately. And so in that next shipment, you're probably going to be wanting to get at least like, 100, 200, 500 units so that you can stay in stock for a longer period.
Luca just asked, what Aussie state are you from?
I had to think about it because it's been a long time, but I'm from Queensland. Or actually, I'm originally from South Australia, but lived in Queensland for like most of my adult life.
Had to ask it. Cool.
Okay, let's see. So, question here from KC Wealth. Can you list to restricted product list by Amazon? I think we sort of covered this earlier. There are categories and types of products that are gated by Amazon, meaning that you need to like request approval, and there's some sort of process. I'm not familiar with it, but there's a process that you would have to go through in order for Amazon to allow you to sell restricted products. I don't know if there's actually two groups of products where Amazon has like, these are just restricted products that like no one can sell on Amazon. And then there are like products that are gated and require you to get approval. I think maybe that's the case where there are just also like a blacklist of like, you just can't sell these at all.
Definitely, yeah.
But you can find that information though of like restricted products on Amazon, and it'll tell you whether it is something that you can sell or whether it's just like no deal.
Right.
Okay. I think this is a good one. So this question is, when can we expect the product to go into profit? After 3 months and $4,000 US in advertising, we are still not profitable. Should we wait another 6 months? Thanks. Awesome. Well, I can't give you very specific advice because I obviously don't know your sales and your product and your margins, etc. What I will say is that, yes, this is a very typical journey. We have a great product research webinar with Greg Mercer, our CEO and founder here at Jungle Scout, that came out a couple of weeks ago. And in that, he shares a little bit of the journey that we went through launching our washable pee pads. But to give you an idea, when we first launched the product, we had to drop the price and do a lot of PPC advertising, just like you, in order to get those initial sales. Because, remember, you're selling against all these products that have hundreds or even thousands of reviews. You're a brand new product with 0 reviews. Think about how likely you would be to buy that kind of product. So in order to get people to buy that product, price was our biggest incentive, dropping the price significantly lower than anyone else. So I think we ended up going a little bit lower than we actually needed to, but most people around about 30. We were selling at about $20 and we were using a lot of advertising. And so the first, I think it was like 3 months, we were in like $7,000 to $8,000 of loss, basically. So it took all of that time. I think it was around about month 4 that we were, we started getting a few reviews. We were able to offer less of a steep discount and then start to make like a small profit, I think, per unit. Maybe it was like a couple of dollars. I can't quite remember. But then it was from like months 4 to like 9 or something like that, where our unit, we had like a small amount of profit per unit. But remember, we were still trying to like recoup all of our initial expenses. And then it wasn't until I think like month 9 or 10 where we got to a point where we'd raised enough profit to kind of pay ourselves back for our initial investment. And then at that point, we then were truly making profit every month. And those numbers mightn't be the exact same for you, but I do just want to like everyone to understand and have the expectation that you're most likely not going to be profitable for a while, but that's part of the process until you build up a healthy amount of reviews and sales and organic ranking. And then there is sort of a point where you are able to turn that around. So I don't know specifically in your example everything that you're doing, but I would say that this sounds very similar to our journey and what I would expect.
Definitely.
Do you have anything else to add there? Or?
No, I think you said it all. That's a very common question, but I think you nailed it right on the head there.
Awesome. Unless you've got any other questions here, I can just jump in.
There was actually one that I thought would be a good one to answer. So the question from Chinmay about Jungle Scout's data accuracy. So I'd assume you're referring to our sales estimates. We're very proud, but like I think Jungle Scout has the most accurate data. And I'm not just saying that to say that, but we've been doing this the longest out of any software tool. When Greg Mercer founded the company, that was what Jungle Scout is doing was not a thing. And so what that's done is very similar to, actually, if you think of like ChatGPT, they have so many users using it that their algorithms and their engineers are learning so much quicker than everybody else that's just getting started or who's going to start in the future. And so what Jungle Scout has done so well is the algorithm has been trained longer than any other tool on the market. So our algorithms have adapted longer than anybody else, and then our engineers just have so much information, a wealth of information that they can use to just really understand when Amazon moves. When Amazon zigs, we zag. So I think Jungle Scout's data accuracy is top of the top because we have that historical, learning of our algorithms, and their engineers are just insane. They're also Amazon sellers. We have a lot of Amazon sellers on the team. A lot of them are our engineers as well, so they kind of know what to look for and what sellers want as well.
Yeah, and also heads up, I believe there's like a detailed blog post on our website as well, which will dive a little bit more into data accuracy. I think it'll also like maybe share some like case studies that we've, comparisons that we've done in the past. So you can like, if you want to nerd out, you can do that and learn a little bit more about accuracy.
Awesome.
All right, so it looks like we're on to step number 2.
Step number 2, we'll come right back to the live questions after we get through this step here. So step 2 is all about finding suppliers, so supplier research. And the first question from our How to Sell on Amazon video is, how can I differentiate my product by bundling it with another product? Now, Lenny, this was a question I saw like a ton, and it's probably the most asked question in this type of section, and just in different wording. So like a lot of people just want to know the process of, let's say supplier A has this product, supplier B has another product. How can I actually bundle that? What's the process of getting 2 products merged together?
Yeah, I guess I was gonna like start one step higher, I guess, with like all of the different options or how you could go about it. So the easiest, most frictionless way to do it is if the same supplier sells both types of products.
Right.
If you're working with a manufacturer directly, which is what we typically that's what we typically recommend, because you're gonna get the best prices generally, because it's not a trading company who's bought it from the manufacturer and has to make a margin themselves. So you get best prices. You can communicate about changes and things more directly with a manufacturer, but with a manufacturer, they typically are just making one kind of product. And so you may be limited by the types of different products that they sell. Even if it's like products that go together, they may not be made of like the same materials, and the actual manufacturing process might be different for these 2 types of products. So you can't get it from the same manufacturer.
Right.
That could be an advantage for a trading company who has access to a few different manufacturers and might be able to help you source and get pricing for different products. And essentially, you can just use them or just kind of treat them as your go-to point, and then they can, on their end, they kind of source different products, get them packaged, bundled together for you. And it's pretty much the same as if you were just working with, a manufacturer, like you're just one point of contact. Now, if that's not possible to get 2 products from the same point of contact, then yes, you will need to have 2 suppliers. I have done this in the past where I had 2 different suppliers, and in my instance, I was able to get supplier B to send it to supplier A. And then they charged me for their product plus shipping to, which wasn't very much, to the other supplier. And then I got supplier A to agree to package both of those products for me in my, in my bundle. I can't remember, they might have like added like a small fee or something. Maybe it was like 20, 30 cents in order for them. Yeah, to kind of like receive another product and do all the packaging for me. But they were, just willing to have wanted to have my business, and so they did that for me. I don't know if every supplier is going to be open to that. You would essentially just have to ask whether they would be willing to do that. I, feel really lucky that I had a supplier that was open to that, and it ended up working pretty well. It got to a point where the 2 suppliers had a relationship, and I didn't have to really organize anything. I basically just said that I was, I wanted to order another 1,000 units. they both produced 1,000 units and they just sent it to each other. They communicated to make sure the delivery came, and it actually was pretty smooth. But I guess those are all of your options. But honestly, I wouldn't be scared to try. It's essentially just a matter of asking.
Right. That's interesting because, like, if you find a supplier that is very minimal and they can only do like your one product, to your point, if you find another supplier that's, in China, if your other suppliers in China, that shipping cost is going to be very minimal versus what some people actually do is they send their product from China to, let's say, the US where they're going to be selling, and they have that other supplier send that product as well to the supplier, or I'm sorry, to somewhere in the US, and you basically use like a 3PL or a holding company to like kind of do that for you. That could be a good idea. It's going to be a little more expensive, obviously, for shipping. That could be a good idea if you're already thinking about using a 3PL to hold excess inventory. So maybe you don't want to have all of your inventory into Amazon because they're just going to cost an arm and a leg to do that. So you send all your inventory to a 3PL somewhere in the United States or wherever you're selling, and then you basically just have both companies or suppliers send your products in. That 3PL, if they can do it, you have to make sure they could. A lot of them do now. They can kind of mix and commingle your inventory together. So that's another option. The DIY scrappy way of doing it could be have both suppliers send it to you at your house and you just mix it together. Sometimes that could be cheaper. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Like Lenny said, I think the best way would probably be finding a supplier that can maybe work with other suppliers. So you could actually ask the supplier, hey, do you work with other suppliers or do you kind of have ins with other suppliers that sell this type of product that we want to mix with it? So I'd always just ask your supplier what their options are, what their capabilities are, and who they know first, and then think about the other options.
Great.
Cool. All right. So the next question related to suppliers is, if I make an improvement to my supplier's product, could they actually just sell that product to other brands? This is a interesting question. It's also something that we're in the process of kind of doing ourselves or thinking about. That is a risk.
Yeah, I think the answer is like, yes, they could.
Yeah.
You can try to deter them from doing that. Like, I think a lot of people would recommend you basically get them to sign an agreement to say that they're not going to do that. That's probably like the best thing you can do. Is that foolproof gonna like prevent them from doing it 100%? No, but it's something, and it's pretty much like the best you can do.
Especially in China, their laws don't work here. If you have a U.S. supplier, you could actually write that into the contract. Something happens, you sue them.
Yeah.
In China, good luck. But you can still write that into the contract, like Lenny said, to deter them somewhat.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's pretty much it. You can write a contract, get them to sign it, and that's,
I wouldn't let that deter you, though. I mean, it's kind of scary at first, but like if your product's doing very well with that improvement or innovation, then you could maybe switch suppliers. You could always bring it to the United States or somewhere else that has strict laws around kind of patents or whatever you're going to do. So maybe if you're patenting it, I would avoid that. But if you are going to patent it, then you kind of, I think that'd be part of like the legal binding agreement. But it's a great question. So the next supplier related question here is, what can I do when a supplier won't respond to my initial email?
This is an easy one. You move on.
Just wave goodbye.
Yeah, if they're, there's so many suppliers there for any product that you're looking for that if they're not replying, then move on. They're not a great supplier at all. If you're in a situation sometimes you have a product where there's very limited suppliers because it's a very niche type product. With that, you're just going to have to be persistent, but usually you've got way more options, way more fish in the sea, so I would just move on. You don't want to work with someone that doesn't have great contact. So
one thing you could do to set yourself up for success is also make sure you get across to them that you're serious about doing business with them at a large enough volume that they should pay attention to. So in our supplier outreach template, which if you don't already have that downloaded, head over to either our last How to Sell on Amazon YouTube video, so it's that main video on our channel. So it was like 2.5 hours long. That should help you find it. And then in the description, we have that supplier outreach template. It's part of our How to Sell on Amazon PDF, which is like a PDF version of this video as well. So in that template, we actually have a line that we say something around the lines of, we plan to buy an estimated, I think, 10,000 units annually, which is a huge number for most suppliers. After an initial trial order of 500 to 1,000 units. So that lets them know that you're going to test out the product first with a smaller order, but over the course of a year, you're serious about dropping a lot of money on their business or on their product. So just that might help you get them to see or really want to respond to your email. But if they don't respond, that's a big red flag, and that's one of the first things that we do when we're narrowing down suppliers. We go, okay, who has bad English or who's just like really bad to talk to because they just don't understand how to communicate with us, and then also like, are they responding to us within 24 or 48 hour period? That's definitely a big deal when choosing a supplier.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that wraps up our step 2 supplier questions. So maybe we can answer a few live ones before going to step 3.
Okay, let's get to it. So trying to catch up on some questions here. So Raja asks, hi guys, I'm about to sign up for Amazon Seller Central. Please recommend one of the business models I should start with. Shall I start with wholesale or private label? So if you don't already know much about those, I would recommend just doing a little bit of research to understand what each of them are. We predominantly talk about private label on our channel. We also do have a few videos on wholesale, so I would recommend checking them out and getting a sense of what wholesale is. I don't really like to tell people which one that they should start with. I can tell you my preference, which has always been private label, because you're building your own brand. And so, yeah, you're building an asset for yourself, or one that you can sell down the line for a potentially a bigger payoff. So I like that, but there's just more steps, more money involved, or like capital up front with private label. So that's the obvious downside. Wholesale is a little bit easier to get started with. I would say maybe if you've got like less money to get started, like the person earlier that maybe only had $400, maybe wholesale might be a better way to get started, because you typically need less money to get started and the product's already made. You're finding an existing product that is doing well, that's already proven, and then you're just kind of selling that one. So either or is fine. Just do some research, decide on which one that you want to do. Also, just keep in mind that you don't have to be exclusive with either of them. You could certainly have a business where you do both. And I know a lot of sellers that do have a combination of some wholesale products, and then they're building out their private label line. So you can't really go wrong. You could start with wholesale and then start developing your own private label products along the way. So
I see a few people in the chat today that are thinking about doing wholesale, like Chinmay, I believe, and arbitrage even, or other business models outside of private label. Another thing I would say as a pro for private label is that wholesale, a lot of people think it's easier to start. And sometimes we actually do say that phrase. It's easier to start because you don't have to go build your own brand and speak with suppliers about manufacturing. However, I actually think it's harder. And the reason why is because, as Chinmay, you actually put here in the chat, is you have to get brand approval. And that's just for one brand. And so you're constantly doing product research every week, every month, every day sometimes, to find the next product to add to your inventory. So that could be very challenging just to find those products, but then it could be very challenging getting approval for it. And then it could be more challenging actually showing up on the listing and winning the buy box. To me, that is so much harder than just manufacturing my own product, which that's going to be the hard part. But then everything after that is easy relative to wholesale or arbitrage and drop shipping. So to me, I do think the payoff is worth it, and it's a lot less stressful once you launch the product. You just got to launch one product versus with wholesale, it's a numbers game. So that would be my, I guess, case for private label over wholesale, or really any other business model on Amazon.
Yeah, another small thing, and this is just me personally, I would say it's like, what do you enjoy doing? For me, I actually much prefer doing private label, maybe because I am more of a creative person. For me, it's like a lot more fun and satisfying to like pick a product, create my own, make adjustments and do all of that. Yes, it's extra work, but for me personally, it's just more satisfying and interesting than, yeah, to your point, having to like reach out, get brand approvals and like find someone else's product. It's like, if you manage to get that product, it's like kind of cool, but to me, it's not as fulfilling as making my own product. But yeah, that's just another small thing to maybe consider.
Yeah.
There's a question from earlier from Clevon here. I'm not a resident of the USA. How long should I have an existing business before I get accepted to sell on Amazon FBA? The answer is today, 0 days. You don't have to wait in order to set up a Seller Central account and get started on Amazon. There's no prerequisite to have an existing business. Other platforms, I think like Walmart, for example, might kind of have something like that, but anyone can just get started setting up a Seller Central account and get selling on Amazon, even if you're outside of the US.
And you know what, this might be a good time to transition back to the slides because I'm seeing a few of these type of questions come in about selling on Amazon, getting started, and what you need. And so that brings us into step 3 now from our How to Sell on Amazon video, which is all about setting up your business and also your Seller Central account on Amazon. And so this is a question very similar to the last one. Do I need an LLC to sell on Amazon? This is a question we get all the time. It's very, very popular. People think you need an LLC to sell on Amazon because there's a lot of great benefits. You get brand registry. Brand registry helps you add videos to your listing, or that might be outdated now, but it allows you to take advantage of sponsored brand and sponsored display campaigns, which are a form of advertising on Amazon. It allows you to have A+ content. It allows you to compete better with your competition on Amazon. So there are benefits of having it, but it's not a requirement, especially if you're just getting started and you have limited funds. I would spend all that money on inventory if you can, just buying excess inventory so that you don't have to sell out or go out of stock. But if you do have the funds available, whether it's when you first launch or later down the line, you can expect, I want to say when I did it, it was around $1,000 to $1,500, and that's because I got my my LLC done through, or I'm sorry, no, I actually only paid about $500 through LegalZoom. You could do it a lot cheaper without LegalZoom, but I just wanted someone else to take care of it for me, so that's what I recommend. But you don't need it to get started on Amazon.
Yeah, you can switch at any time. It's like pretty simple. So what it would look like is you sign up for Seller Central. It'll say, are you an individual or a company? You'll say an individual. It'll ask for some personal details you might have to put in, like your social, or if you've got your own like tax file number or like equivalent of a tax ID. You put those details in, you'll need like an address and so forth. You just basically use all your own personal details. You can then, you'll need a bank account detail, you'll need a card to put on file, or like a credit card usually. You can use your own personal bank account, you can use your own personal credit card, etc. And you can actually just get started and get selling. Now, is it going to be a little cleaner and better for you to kind of have all of that in a business name? Yeah, absolutely. So, if you've got a lot of money to get started, then it's just probably going to be like a little bit cleaner and easier to get started with all of that stuff. But to Jake's point, if you've got limited funds, I would just start with, putting all of that into inventory, prove that you can start selling, and then be like, okay, great, I'm going to spend some extra money now to get an LLC. At that point, you just go back into Seller Central, go into your settings, and then, you could basically just edit your settings there and say like, oh, now I'm a company. I think it might send you through like a tax interview where, you just put in all of the details for your company. And then as you save that, now it's switched over. So it's not hard to change in the future when you get to that step. And the obvious benefits are, once you have an LLC, you can now have a separate bank account and a separate credit card, and
taxes will be so much easier to file.
Yeah, so that's probably like the biggest downside is like if you've got your first year of selling and it's like, oh, you had like money that was going into your personal account, and then at a certain point it goes into like a business account. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to like sort all of that out. It's doable, but if you can just keep them separate from the beginning, it's better, but it's just a nice to have.
And then it also protects you. So if something were to happen, you get sued or someone just attacks your brand for any reason, you're going to be protected with an LLC. There's actually a question, Lenny, I had to choose between these two, but it's very similar. There was a couple questions about, should I get a sole proprietorship or an LLC, a single member LLC? And the really only major difference there is what we just said is an LLC will protect you, a sole proprietorship won't protect you. There are some benefits of, just being an individual on Amazon. like you just don't have to register for business. There's certain tax documents you don't have to fill out. But I think at the end of the day, it helps you be protected. It helps you be organized. If you don't have an LLC, that's fine. Just track your expenses on an Excel spreadsheet that are for your business. So that way, when the time comes around to do your taxes every year, you kind of like have that done already, and you don't have to go digging through your personal and business purchases to like extract what you actually spent on your business. But yeah.
Yeah. By protection, do you mean that the difference is a sole proprietor, it doesn't protect your personal assets?
Exactly. It doesn't protect your personal assets.
If someone sued you or whatever, they could theoretically come after whatever, a car, albeit, like house or whatever.
Yeah, so if you have like a coveted PlayStation right now, you don't want that to get lost if someone were to sue you, get the LLC.
Yeah.
It's going to protect your personal assets.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. Very similar question, but this time about trademarks. If I sell from outside of the US, when I decide to trademark my brand name, which country should I do it in? And if I remember correctly, this was actually a question that came from somebody located in Australia saying, hey, I live in Australia, I'm gonna sell in the US, where should I get my trademark? And there's a lot of questions from different countries, like Pakistan I saw quite a few times in our comments. What I would say is get it in the country that you're going to sell in first, and then get it in your country. Ideally, you'd want to have both. That's going to be a little more costly to do, but it's definitely worth it. The benefits of getting it in the country you're selling in is kind of like what we're talking about in terms of like liability. It's going to protect your trademark in that country where customers are going to be buying it from. So if someone were to copy you, they can't really sell it in that country, the US, the biggest marketplace right now on Amazon. But then when you do it in your country, it's going to be easier to work with people in your country because they might be looking for that, or for whatever reason, if you want to expand to the Australian market, you'll need to have that. So I guess it's really kind of like can go either way for like LLCs and trademarks. Do it in the country that you're selling in, and then also your country because, like we said, taxes, liability, and then fending off future competition from your IP.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sort of like an expert here. I can say that I did it in the US, even when I was like selling outside of the US. When I actually first started, as far as like an LLC, I actually set up a company in Australia, and I used that, but I ended up switching and now have like an LLC in the US just because I think it seemed clearer, and like I'm living in the US now, so as far as a company goes, I think you can do it either way. And then I think, with a trademark, it's the same. But I would suggest what you suggested and do it in the country where you're selling the most, which for like a lot of people is probably going to be the US. So
I see some questions rolling in about how do I get an LLC? How do I get a trademark? So really quickly, I think the most simplest way, now you can't actually do it yourself if you have like the time and patience to learn how to do it. I don't have the time and patience. I want to just have experts do it for me. For an LLC, I went through LegalZoom. I love it because they did it for me. And then I also like stick with them, and they basically send me whenever documents change. So actually going into next year, there's a new document that every LLC needs to sign. I forget the name of it, but I got to get on it because if you don't kind of sign that document and do something, I don't know what this is actually, then you're going to get in trouble come next year. So that's why I like LegalZoom. They kind of inform me on that and make it easy to continue the process of being an LLC. With a trademark, the best way of doing it, in my opinion, is to go through Amazon's brand registry program. If you're not familiar with that program, it's basically Amazon has pre-negotiated rates with law firms that they trust that do really good work, and they can't charge you over a certain amount to get get a trademark. And the reason why this program is great is because the benefit of getting a trademark on Amazon is getting Amazon brand registry. Like I mentioned, that gives you a bunch of great access to sell your product better on Amazon. So brand registry, I'm getting confused here. The IP Accelerator program. Sorry, I'm mixing all my words. It's very confusing to me too. The IP Accelerator program will help you get your trademark on Amazon, and you'll get brand registry immediately. Now, if you get your trademark outside of Amazon, you'll have to submit a pending trademark application. And the downside of that is Amazon won't give you brand registry until that trademark is approved. And at least in my experience, that takes over a year sometimes. I think mine took about 15 months or something to get approved. And so that means I would go 15 months without having all the benefits that are going to help me sell my new product. So I'd recommend just using IP Accelerator program, Amazon's program, to get your to get basically in the door, get brand registry right away. And also they like take care of everything for you. They're going to do all the paperwork for you, and then they're going to send that paperwork to Amazon when it's being pending. So I think the IP Accelerator program is the best program to get it done. And it's very cost effective, I think. Cost effective.
Yeah, I don't think it seems any more expensive.
I don't think so.
Potentially even cheaper. So I would, just totally recommend that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great question. So this next one here is, if I register as an individual, so individual versus professional account, is there a limit on how many products I can sell each month on Amazon? There is no limit. So there's two types of accounts here. There's a professional account, which it's $40 a month, and then there's an individual account, which is free, but you have to pay 99 cents per sale. So there's not a limit on the individual account, but the math sort of just makes sense where if you're going to sell 40 units a month, so basically you're going to be charged $40, because remember that 99 cent per transaction fee, then you should upgrade to the professional account. Now, there are some other benefits of the professional account. You get access to other features on Amazon, other reporting dashboards, and things like that. So I would always recommend professional. However, if you're just getting started, maybe you're actually just doing research right now and you're not actually selling your product, you can always do the individual and switch to professional later once you hit that 40 sales a month threshold. So I would just use that number as a guidance point of like when you should switch accounts.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Ultimately, if you're looking to do like private label as a business, then it's very, very likely you're planning to sell more than 40 units per month. Plus, you get all these additional benefits from professional, like advertising and everything. So probably for most people in this audience, I think it makes the most sense to just get a professional account. I think the individual account is more if you've got like, you're clearing out a few like used items or something maybe where you've just got a small number that you're trying to get rid of. But if you're, I think professional makes sense as a business. And
keep in mind, if you do professional, you only start paying that $40 a month when inventory hits FBA for the first time. So you can get professional today, and if you could send your inventory in next year, you won't be paying $40 a month until that happens. Hopefully that helps answer the question, but that does wrap up step 3 of business-related questions. So yeah, what do you think about some live questions here?
Let's see. I'm just...
Keep in mind, actually, the next step, step 4, is all about ordering inventory, so things like barcodes. We'll be talking about that coming up here shortly, so like FN SKUs and UPCs.
Yeah, okay. So let's see. It's probably, it's kind of like save questions, but maybe I'll just kind of like jump into them. Okay, so question from Squid Gaming. Does brand approval prevent others from selling in the buy box? I'm trying to think. I feel like maybe it doesn't prevent them, but it just gives you like a separate portal and way to report and like report them and so forth, and like more means to get rid of them. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of. Do you think this is a wholesale question? Because there's two ways
of brand approval.
There's two ways to interpret this. And
okay.
Squid Gaming, feel free to like add more context. But for private label, the idea is once you're brand registered, Amazon should do all they can to shield hijackers. But in our case, we still get some that jump on our listings, and we just have to kick them off by like either reporting them or messaging them first to try to get them to leave. And sometimes that works. If this is for wholesale, I think maybe this question could come from you ask the brand that you're going to be working with for approval to sell that product, and you kind of get that in writing. Unless they say you're the only person that could sell this, they don't have that agreement with anybody else. Brand approval just usually means you can get it listed on Amazon successfully, and you can be in the buy box, but it doesn't mean you're gonna be the only one in the buy box. But what you need to do with that letter, get it in writing, send it to Amazon, so you'll just open up a case in the case log, and there's a lot of good content online about how to do this, and you just submit that there. You say you have a brand approval letter from the brand, and they should let you into the buy box.
Cool. Question here from Sazi. It's, can you tell the criteria of back-end search terms on Amazon? So correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially back-end search terms on Amazon, the simplified sort of answer is they're not as important as the keyword, like the search terms that you would put in your listing, in your title, bullet points, and then description. It's a space to put additional keywords that maybe you want to be connected to your product, but aren't as important as your primary ones. And so typically that's how I would approach it is you've got a big keyword list of all the most important keywords, all the ones that you really want your product to be connected to. You would make sure those are in your listing. And then any of the others, maybe they're like more long tail or not quite as important. I would put them into the back-end search term. So I don't think it's super, super, super critical to have that built out. So is that your understanding?
Yeah, I guess one way I like looking at it is this is like you talking to the algorithm of, hey, here's a word that some people might put in to find my product, but most people won't. And I was trying to think of an example while you're talking there is we sell these washable pee pads for dogs, and washable pee pads for dogs is what people usually type in. And we know that because we have Keyword Scout that we can see search volume. Sometimes people type in urine pads, and so we know that's a high volume search term or medium volume search term. But what if someone types in piss pads? That might be a word that we put in the back-end search term, like piss, because
we're not going to put that in our listing.
We're not going to put it in our listing because nobody's typing it out. But there might be a few people that type in piss pads. That's just how they talk, so they want to put that into the search term. That's us communicating to Amazon that our product is for piss.
Coming from China, you want to get all of those units into the US, but you want to find some cheaper storage and just send in however much you need at a time into Amazon FBA. And so these are two options that you could use. AWD is a little newer, maybe it's like 18 months or something, but essentially we'll just call it Amazon's own version of a 3PL. We've actually been using that for a couple of variations of our product now. And we're actually wanting to do a little bit more of a deep dive into like the costs and to kind of figure out exactly how much it costs and, compare that to using a 3PL, since we actually do use a 3PL for a different product. One consideration actually that just came to mind when I said that is the size of your product. I think we're using our 3PL for our bamboo marshmallow sticks because they're oversized or they're too big for AWD. So I think there's one limitation for AWDs, like the size of your product. Maybe it's just like standard size or something.
I think so.
So that's one limitation, but otherwise, high level, I think the experience we've had with AWD has been pretty cool.
Yeah.
We can, there's like a dashboard for it in Seller Central. You can see this is how many units is in AWD. This is how many units is in FBA. This is how many units is in transit between the two. One feature I really like about it is that once you've got your units in AWD, Amazon will just automatically, or I think it's like a setting that you can turn on and off, but Amazon will automatically like send units for you into FBA. So as you start to get low in FBA, I don't know what the threshold is, but Amazon seems to do a pretty good job. They just send in inventory for you. And you do also have the option of doing a manual shipment as well. So if you're like, oh, we're coming into Q4, I'm going to send like an extra amount of units, you can do that. But so far, I think AWD's been really cool. I really like it. I like the simplicity of it.
Less time, yeah.
Yeah. So I would recommend checking it out if you're eligible to put to send your ASIN into it. I would definitely check it out, but it is something again that we want to kind of like deep dive into is particularly on the cost side, what is the difference? I think ease of use, it's easier than using your own 3PL probably. But I'm curious to kind of like dig into the cost side of it.
Yeah, unless you were selling like on Shopify or some other platform, then I think AWD just makes the most sense for now. But yeah, if you're doing other platforms, and 3PLs are great for that reason.
Yeah, that's a good call. Let's see if we covered like a lot of this.
Here's a question from Mohammed about global selling. So he lives in Canada and wants to sell in the US, but a message is showing that Asia is hidden for him. So in the US, you are automatically eligible to sell in Canada and Mexico as well. So basically the North and South America, the Americas. To sell in the other ones, you can absolutely sell there. I think you just have to apply for it, I believe is my understanding. But Amazon wants you to do that. They want you to expand. So it's pretty easy or pretty seamless to get in, but it is
separate account. So it's like the main one that probably most of you will sign up for is like a North America account, which gives you access to the US and as well as like Mexico and Canada. But if you want another whole region, there's like, like Europe and all of that. And then there's also,
Asia, even Southern America,
Yeah. So you would sign up for each of those different regions, like an account, and then it gives you access to like multiple countries in that region. What is nice though is that you can sign into Seller Central though, and then there's like a little drop-down menu and you can toggle between them. So you have to sign up for separate accounts, but you can access them all from the same UI. You do just have to like switch to the different regions. Great. Let's see. So this question is, with Chinese suppliers listing directly on Amazon, how can you find profitable products when you're competing with the manufacturers? Yeah, I know this is a concern, and it's totally understandable when you do see Chinese suppliers selling on Amazon, and that I do understand that as a frustration, because typically they can outprice you and sell at a much cheaper price that you can't afford or that there is no money on. I don't know how to how can you find profitable products when you're competing with the manufacturers? All you can really do is utilize the data that you've got in front of you.
Right.
So just do the same process that we always talk about. You basically considering selling product X, you see who's selling it now, who's like ranking at the top, what is the average price point, can I make a profit margin on it? And that's the only information you can really go off of. Could a Chinese supplier sell that in the future and sell it at a low price and undercut everyone? Like, sure, that could happen, but unless it already has happened, then I wouldn't worry about it. If you see that, there's a bunch of Chinese suppliers already selling this product and you're going to have very low profit margins, then I would move on to the next product. So for me, I don't know if it really changes anything. I would just do the same process that you would typically do and make sure that you can make a profit on whatever you're selling.
Definitely.
All right. Should we move on to the next section here?
Yeah. So this next section, step 4, is all about ordering your inventory. So a lot of barcode questions, which is a very popular type of question we get asked. So this first question, though, is I'm new to Amazon. Should I start with FBA or FBM? So this is a great question because a lot of people think that, FBA is too costly, or maybe it's harder to get started because you have to send your inventory into Amazon. It's got to kind of work its way through the system and then it gets into stock. Where with FBM is if you have the products at your house, you can sell right away. You can get the listing up today, it could be active today, and you could sell today. So what I would say is I would still start with FBA. And the reason why is because I'm thinking long-term here. If this is my very first time selling on Amazon, I just want to start doing things, and then over time, I'm going to know how to do them a lot better. So if you are sending into FBA, there's a system for that. You do a ship to Amazon shipping or shipment, and this is the whole process of it. So you want to really learn, and the only way of learning is by doing it over time. So I would just want to get started right away and accelerate my learning by experience, and that's why I would get started with FBA right away. I think maybe the greatest benefit with FBM right away is the speed of launching. So maybe you're doing wholesale and you just want to get the product out right away. That could be beneficial. But if you're in this for the long run and you want to get better at being an Amazon seller, I would say just get started with FBA now and then just keep refining it by getting better at doing it.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. That makes sense.
Cool. Well, this next question then is one of the most popular questions we get. What's the difference between a UPC barcode and an FNC barcode?
I kind of hate this question because we're constantly trying to find new and inventive ways to kind of talk about it. The simple way to explain it is that a UPC barcode is required for you to create a listing on Amazon.
Yeah.
Once you've created the listing, that generates what's called a FNSKU barcode. That's generated by Amazon for your product, and you then need to put that barcode on each of your products. Oh wait. Oh yeah. Well, actually, that's a sticker, but we also now
it's on
have
that side, I think.
We have it
It's
printed
like on
the packaging as well.
Kind of like right there.
The other way, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so once you've got your listing created, all you need is an FNSKU barcode. You get that attached to every individual listing. And so if I had 1,000 of these, I would put the exact same barcode that's attached to this product on all of them.
Yep. And so, yeah, and then just like another way maybe of explaining it is like your UPC barcode is what gets you the FNSKU barcode. UPC is generally or globally accepted. So if you're going to be selling on Target, Amazon, or whatever, they'll want to use that one. FNSKU is an Amazon code, and it's literally just to help Amazon know whose inventory is who. So this doesn't really matter if you're the only one selling your product, but it's still helpful to have it. But let's say me and Lenny are both selling this product, and we're two different people. Like we're two different brands. My FNSKU code will be different than his. So when he sends his in, it's not going to go under my brand name because maybe he's doing something that I don't like. Maybe he messed up the product or did something different that's going to reflect on me. So an FNSKU barcode is going to help Amazon know whose inventory is who. And even if you're doing private label, there's still a chance that a hijacker comes on your listing. So you want to make sure you have an FNSKU barcode just to protect you from hijackers. But yeah, great question. We can move on to our next question because this is a good follow-up one. Can both the UPC and FNSKU barcodes appear next to each other on the packaging? And so this is a question that could be, I could see how someone's asking this if they're selling on multiple marketplaces. So you're selling on Amazon, you want the FNSKU barcode for that reason, but then you're also selling on Walmart or Shopify, and you want the UPC barcode for that reason. The short answer is on Amazon, you can only have one code because you're just going to confuse Amazon and they might not even accept your packaging if there's more than one barcode on there. So I would just have the FNSKU barcode on there just to make it simple for them so that they're scanning the right thing. If you're going to do both fulfillment methods, you can just use a UPC barcode. Again, it's kind of running the risk, though, that Amazon's going to commingle your inventory with other sellers if that ever happens.
Yeah. I don't specifically know the answer, but yeah, I think what you said makes sense there.
Okay, cool. Well, this next question is, does the same label that goes on the product, the FNSKU, also go on the boxes I send them in? So when you're sending your products into Amazon FBA, most likely you'll have like 10 of these in one big box or whatever the number is, and you'll send like 20 of those boxes. So the answer is no. The FNSKU only goes on the product or the product's packaging. For us, we can't really put the barcode on our product, like the cloth, so we put it on our packaging, so that works. I'm pointing to the wrong spot. But then when you do a shipment, you also have box labels, so that goes on those bigger boxes that I mentioned. And if you're sending in a pallet, then you also have pallet labels as well. So there could potentially be 3 different labels for you, but short answer is FNSKU goes on your product or packaging. The box labels goes on the box that you send those products in, and then pallet labels go on the pallets.
Yep. Good. Cool.
But that wraps up the step 4 questions. And then the next step here would be step 5 about building your listing.
Okay, let's dive into that.
Yeah, there's a lot of good questions here, and we can maybe answer some more live questions towards the end here. But the first question here on building a listing is about, what's the best place to get product pictures from? Any thoughts on photography and kind of where to go to get those pictures?
I don't have a really strong opinion on it. I mean, I guess being a photographer myself, it's like I would typically do them myself or try to do them myself. But
what if you're like me and you're just not a photographer? You do all your photos on your...
If I was like you,
I would photos are like this.
Probably get me.
Okay, I'll get you, okay.
Well, for a couple of our products here at Jungle Scout, we've used a site called productphotography.com. They do a really good job. They are more expensive, but they do a really good job. So what I liked about them, and then I've used them personally as well, and in my use case, I had like a very large object that needed like a whole kind of setup to do, like it was hanging from a ceiling. And so they were great that they were able to accommodate a photo shoot for a product that is sort of it's not just something that like sits on a table and you can like take a photo of with a white background. It had like a custom setup sort of thing. And so they were able to accommodate that. I had to pay extra money, but they were able to kind of accommodate for different situations, good communication, very prompt. They have like a variety of different packages. So I found them to be pretty good, but I'm not absolutely attached to them. It's not like, they're my number one recommendation. It's just who I'm familiar with. There's a lot of options out there. I would maybe like see, like, do you just know anyone in your own town, like your own network locally that you can work with? Is probably going to be easier, but there's like a ton of online options. I know like you've worked with some companies, right, that do photo and video. Or,
I found a few companies, but with a simple Google search of, I just typed in Amazon product photography companies, and I like that idea of using someone who specializes in Amazon, because there's a whole psychology that goes into, like the main image especially. How can you stand out on the search results page? So I like that idea of just using Google to find Amazon-specific photographers. Another really good resource is, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch the How to Sell on Amazon video that this live Q&A is referencing, because in the Build a Listing section, I talk about there's a way in Seller Central, actually, so your Amazon account, to find photographers that specialize in Amazon products. Can't remember that workflow now, but it's very simple if you just follow that video, again, in that Build a Listing section. So highly recommend checking that out. They actually have a bunch of photographers you can reach out to.
Okay, awesome.
Great. Well, this next question here is there a way to view your listing if you haven't added photos yet? This is, I think, going to be a quick answer, but this comes as a surprise to a lot of people that when they just launch or when they just create their listing, until they have inventory in and they have photos and the whole listing is completed, it actually won't pop up. So you can't really see your listing as you'd probably want to, which is a really exciting moment. So the answer to this is your listing will go live officially once you have basically everything submitted. That's the vital information, so like your title, bullet points, your photos, and once you have inventory sent in. Sometimes I think Amazon doesn't require the inventory to be in. I've seen like kind of both scenarios, but for me, at least last time I launched a product, I had to have my inventory in for it to show. But then once you're launched, if you go out of stock, it will still appear.
Yeah, maybe like a slight tweak to that. Like I think, when you haven't sent in inventory, you've got 0 units, I feel like your listing won't appear in any search results.
Right.
Because there's no units. But I think technically if you add photos, etc., you can publish that, and the actual, I think like the page exists. Like if you ever, I'm sure everyone's been to a listing where there's it's out of stock or unavailable.
Yeah.
So technically it exists, but no one would typically find it unless they have the exact URL.
Right.
So if you're got a brand new product, you can totally just like mess with it, like play around with your listing, add photos, publish that, and then you can click on your product and you can see the listing and you can see the layout. But until, you send in any inventory, no one else is just gonna stumble upon it publicly.
Right.
It's like very unlikely that anyone's gonna find it without having the actual ASIN or the URL. So I guess it's like, no, you can't, I don't think you can see your listing as a whole without publishing it. So you need to publish it, but you can do that in a way where no one else would really see it.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, this next question is, does it matter which high volume keywords we use in our title? Yeah, this is a great question, because there's a lot that we talk about in a lot of our videos about how to do keyword research, how to build out your listing. And so again, refer back to the How to Sell on Amazon video to see what we recommend. But I guess like what I would say is it does matter which keywords you use in your title specifically, because Amazon is going to weight your title more heavily than your bullet points, description, and backend keywords. So what I would do is try to find your highest volume keywords, which Jungle Scout makes really easy to do in our listing builder tool. But also keep in mind the relevancy of those keywords. So there's certain keywords that for us, for our washable pee pads for dogs, that are very high volume. But if you were to search that on Amazon, our products are totally different from the competition that Amazon is showing at the top. And if Amazon are showing certain products at the top, they know that customers are buying those products. So I would focus on keyword search volume, and relevancy. So washable pee pads for dogs is very relevant for our product. It's a lower volume keyword in comparison to like maybe pee pads for dogs or pee pads for like a kennel or something, whatever the case is. But I'd focus on keyword search volume and relevancy. Those would be the two most important things for my title. Because you want people to look at a keyword that they've typed in or that they're thinking about and click your product, not just the highest volume keywords.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And real quick there, shout out to Kim in the chat who shared a recommendation for product photography like we were talking about.
Oh yeah, I've heard of.
Saying they use Sooner. So that looks like, I was just doing a quick Google search, you can get product photos, you can also get video as well. So that's a cool one to check out. It's Sooner, SOONA.co.
Yeah, I've heard of them. Awesome.
Very cool. All right, what have we got next?
So this is our last section here, step 6 in the How to Sell on Amazon video, all about launching your product. And the first question that we have here is, do you suggest running PPC ads straight away, or should I wait for some reviews to come in first? What are your thoughts, Lenny?
I would do it straight away personally. There are different, it comes down to your preference. Some people I know would rather, or I'd actually, you know, back in the day, it's like your first thing you would be like trying to like find family and friends and people to like buy it, leave a review, and you'd be sort of like waiting to get like, oh, I want to get to at least 3 or 5 reviews, have like something on there, like even just like getting 1 review, it's like, oh, now I've got a star rating, it's not just blank. And so I think that does make sense. I think the truth is, if you've got, at least 1 review or like 3 to 5 reviews, the PPC advertising is going to be a little more effective. It's going to be a little bit cheaper. So that makes sense. However, the way I like to look at it, I'm always kind of like very bullish and want to just get things going. So I kind of do both of those things at the same time. Like, might be trying to find ways to get my first few reviews, but I'm just going to turn on PPC from day 1, knowing that, yes, until I get a few reviews coming in, it's going to be a little more expensive, but I would rather just be trying PPC over those first few days or week whilst I'm simultaneously trying to get reviews or my first reviews as well. Yes, you're going to lose probably or spend like a little bit more money than you would otherwise, but for me, I like to just kind of like get as much momentum as I can, particularly as one of the things you would likely do is turn on an automatic PPC campaign. And the sooner you do that is quite valuable because this is where Amazon chooses which keywords it thinks is relevant for your product. And then you would typically run that for maybe at least like a week or so. And then you can actually go in and see what are the search terms that Amazon thinks is important for your product and which one of those are actually bringing in sales. And so that's like important data to get as soon as you can. So that's another reason that I would get started with PPC immediately. Yeah,
there's a common phrase, retail readiness. It's a phrase that like, okay, you should only start advertising once you have, 5 reviews, 10 reviews. It's a very arbitrary number now, but, and that's really more relevant, I think, for bigger brands that I've seen because they have time to wait and they're, launching their 10th product, not their first product. And so what, I've advised brands to do in that case is wait till you get at least 5 reviews or 10 reviews. That way, when, we do run ads, they're going to be more profitable. But they had stricter demands about being profitable and they had time to kill. So, and you're like what you just said, I'd be more bullish and that's how I am. So I'm not a, huge brand. So I'm going to want to just get my reviews as fast as possible. My whole methodology is once I get to 100 reviews or maybe it's 50 or whatever the number is, then I can kind of turn things around. I can raise my prices. I can lower ad spend. But for me, it's like a race to 100 reviews. And so I am pretty bullish to your point of turning on ads right away to get that initial reviews coming in. But then to your other point is you just want to kind of get search terms back that are working. You're going to find really quickly that these keywords perform better than these keywords. And then once you know what those good keywords are, you can add them into a manual campaign and bid on them more aggressively. So it's all about kind of how patient you want to be and how much, I guess, you have to lose. Because certainly you're going to have a little bit better ROI if you have 5 to 10 reviews at first. But it's going to take you a little bit longer to get those reviews and turn ads on. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also believe that speed is important in this business. If you identify a product that has an opportunity right now, I want to get to market as quickly as possible and get my foothold in the market, start building up my listing and sort of a moat of reviews and try to capture my piece of the pie as quickly as possible. Because I think if you wait too long, then, you know, people always talk about, like, the competition is certainly growing. Other people are going to start launching, and now you're going to be competing at the same level of them. The sooner you get, more of a foothold in the market, the better, which is why I think you just need to move fast. And that's kind of another reason why I would not wait. So as a side note, this is why I would also strongly consider air shipping my first product, depending on what it is. Sometimes it's like, it might be just ridiculous and way out of the question to air ship in your first product versus sea, which is predominantly cheaper. But I don't personally mind. If I've got the money, I would air ship my product in if I can get it in like within a week and a half versus like 45 to 60 days. I just want to get it into Amazon, get selling and get momentum. And then for like my next follow-up shipments, I would try to bake in more time and get a cheaper price. But yeah.
You know what, to Squid Game's recent comment, there is a honeymoon period as well on Amazon. At least believed honeymoon period, but we actually have some, you know, interesting data to back that up. So when we first launched our pea pads, we did spend on ads right away, and a lot. So we actually were just like burning through ad spend. But our ranking at that time, we hit a honeymoon period, and we did get the best, or we got a badge, like new release badge, which is very hard to get, but it's only for products that just launched and they're hitting sales, a lot of sales right away in a short period of time. And so because we were spending on advertising during that honeymoon period, we were able to get that. And then when we slowed down our ads, we still had that badge for maybe a week or two, but it helped us get a lot of organic sales because of it. So there is a honeymoon period on Amazon. And funny enough, I think our BSR at the time, so our best sellers ranking, was one of the best BSRs we've had in the past 3 years since we've launched. So it's still like very hard to get back to that honeymoon phase in terms of just our BSR. We're certainly doing better now, but a honeymoon period is definitely a good reason to spend on ads straight away.
Yeah, because in that first week, the sales and the advertising was just insane. Like typically, I don't know, depending on your budget, but I would like maybe start launching a product with like a couple of $30 campaigns or something like that. But being bullish with washable pea pads, I can't remember, like a couple of campaigns, but it was like, okay, we're gonna go $100 each, which was like an insane amount in my eyes. And then within like an hour, the budgets were exhausted, and it's like, it's like 10 a.m. in the morning. So I like went to like $200, and then like an hour and a half later, that was all gone. And I kept bumping it up, and there was like a few days there where I spent like $1,200 in PPC, and the sales were just insane. And then the organic went up, and it was interesting. I don't know it for sure, but I to your point, I highly suspect that it was, you know, because we're going so heavy on PPC, it was amplifying this. Our
sales velocity was insane. We went from 0 to like 30 sales in like an hour or 2 hours, and then that sales velocity, like sales per hour or whatever, was insane. So I think that's how we got the badge.
Because I think it was also like, the fact that we had the option of getting that new seller badge, and that sort of honeymoon period coupled with our crazy spending, and it just sort of blew up. Alrighty, what do we have next?
Yes, this is a really good question. So do you recommend using other software alongside Jungle Scout? And I think it's a great question because it really just depends on your budget. There's a lot of people who like using the best of the best. So there's people out there, they're typically established sellers that have a lot of resources to spend on software. They'll get the best product research tool, they get the best keyword research tool, the best inventory management tool. What Jungle Scout's great at is we have all of those tools. So you can start a business with Jungle Scout. So we have product research, keyword research tools, whatever. And then you can manage and grow your business with Jungle Scout with the inventory manager tools, with our sales overview, profit overview tools to track your sales and profits over time. So that is the most cost-effective way of doing it. And if you ask a lot of people, Jungle Scout for the longest time has been the best at keyword research, product research, And what has been growing so well over the past few years is all the other tools that we have for sales tracking and inventory management. So that would be what I would do if you had a lot of money you really wanted to spend on like a tech stack. But for most people that have a limited budget, you can get a lot out of Jungle Scout for under $100 a month, $50 a month. And again, we have a limited time deal. This is a long Q&A right now. You may not have seen, but we do have a New Year's special deal where if you click the link in the description below, there is a deal on our Suite 3 months, our Suite Annual, and our Suite plus Freedom Builder Bootcamp course plans. This will expire at the end of this month, so come February, this won't be active anymore, but these deals are insane. So for a small amount, you can get so much out of Jungle Scout. You get world-class product research and keyword research tools, and then everything else you need to grow and manage your business. Again, check out that link. It's in the description of this video for this limited time deal, but if you have any other thoughts on that, I'd be curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think for most people, you don't need any other software outside of Jungle Scout unless you're, I would say like a larger seller and your needs are slightly different. You're managing a more complex, logistics when it comes to inventory or a lot of products, and you might need like something to do with tax or I don't know, but like, there's not really anything else that you would need,
right.
I'd say. Outside of the seller space, just as a business owner, entrepreneur, for me, I can't live without like ChatGPT. I know that there's, there's like obviously free options as well. Actually, you can use things like Bard and so forth. But for me, I think that's like outside of just the softwares that you need to like manage an Amazon business. Just integrating AI or a tool like ChatGPT, I'm finding essential to just everyday work in so many different aspects.
I'll add to that. I'll say LegalZoom, I mentioned earlier, to manage my LLC. They're great. And then Intuit. So you can use, obviously, QuickBooks to manage your business finances. But really what I use Intuit for is for my taxes at the end of the year. I pay somebody like $200. It's like the premium version. And they jump on a phone call with me. It's like a video call. And I just submit everything, and they just make it super simple for someone like me to do my taxes, my business taxes, which they also do my personal taxes too. So Intuit, LegalZoom for me are like must-haves, along with Jungle Scout and, like you said, ChatGPT for just like one-off task and anything else you need.
Nice.
Yep. So another question here is one we get all the time. Do you offer one-to-one training? And the answer is yes and no. So we don't do like one-on-one training, but we do a lot of these calls on YouTube, these live Q&A videos. We obviously have a lot of content on YouTube as well. But if you want the best training that Jungle Scout that we can offer you, it's to sign up for that Freedom Builder Bootcamp course that I have linked in the description below. So you're gonna get the best deal right now in Jungle Scout by using that link. Again, that expires at the end of January. But Freedom Builder Bootcamp is a course taught by Greg Mercer. It's a huge course. There's so many modules that will teach you every single step of launching your product on Amazon. It's very advanced too. And so it can take you a few months to get through it. But that is our best training that we can offer you. And it's on sale right now for a pretty sweet deal. So unless you have any other thing to add, I think that's our best training that we can offer really anyone looking to sell or grow your existing business.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, but go ahead and
get the deal, get FBB.
Yeah.
Freedom Builder Bootcamp.
It's the way to go.
Alrighty, so it looks like we're at the end of those questions, I believe.
Yeah, that wrapped up our full questions that were pre-submitted from our last video. Again, if you haven't seen our full How to Sell on Amazon video, we just updated it for 2024. Head over to our YouTube channel to check that out, and then let us know here in this comment section or in that comment section any other questions you have. We answer every single question in the comments, so feel free to add your questions we couldn't get to in the chat today in the comment section of really any of our videos. Or check out our YouTube community posts. We're updating our community post here on YouTube a lot, very much like you would on Instagram or Twitter. And so if you have any questions, X, not Twitter. If you have any questions at all or just want to engage with us, I think community posts is a great way of doing it because we see it really quickly. And it's sort of like minimal. Like we don't get that many comments on the post like we do on our YouTube channel. So we're definitely going to see those or see you in the post if you want to engage with us there.
Awesome. We'll take a couple more questions from the live chat here just before we wrap up. So I see a question here from Sazi. My friend has sent their goods to FBA warehouse, but they're taking 20 days to transfer and distribute the product into different warehouses. And Amazon is saying that it will be convenient for the customer. Yeah, I would say that that's pretty typical. I think you've got a sort of follow up there. Why are they taking more than 20 days? I think that is pretty typical. There are times of the year where it takes longer. Yeah, so there's a few different things. There's like when you send your shipment in, it's like you'll typically get an email saying it's in receiving at Amazon, but there's still like a period where they're receiving it, and particularly during like Q4, busy times of the year, that can take a week, a couple of weeks, or it can take a long time. Outside of that, it could be as little as like a couple of days or a few days or up to a week, but it's not totally uncommon for that process to kind of take a little bit longer. And then maybe this is slightly different where it's been received by Amazon, but now Amazon is moving some of that inventory. And typically you would see it, I think, when you're in manage inventory, you would like look at the little breakdown of your units and you'll see like a line item that says reserved or something like that, where it's like you've got 1,000 units, but like 800 are available and 200 are reserved, or I think it's something like that. And that typically means that Amazon is moving those units between warehouses. If that's the case, usually like they wouldn't be moving units unless you still had some available. But yeah, I guess ultimately that's not uncommon for it to like take maybe 20 days or so. It just sort of depends on the time of the year and what Amazon's got going on.
Awesome. There's a question here from Sheba too about how can I drive traffic to a low ranking listing on Amazon? I would say in terms of driving traffic to really any type of ranking product on Amazon, your options are really like Amazon ads or off Amazon ads. And Amazon ads will always be the best in my opinion because it's the bottom of the funnel. People are on Amazon to shop. If you do any ads outside of Amazon like TikTok, Google, then you're competing with people who are just browsing and they are not already on Amazon ready to buy. So Amazon ads will always be the least friction in terms of trying to get people into shopping mode and buying your product. So if I had $1,000, I would spend 1,000 of them on Amazon ads. So the best way to drive traffic is with ads. And especially if you have a low ranking product, that will help get the ball rolling, get your sales velocity up. And then over time, you can start to lower your ad spend because hopefully your organic rankings will start to improve as well. So yeah, I would say Amazon ads, best way to drive any type of traffic to your product.
Perfect. Okay, KC Wealth asks, how much does it take to ship products from China to FBA in the US? Actually, I wasn't sure. I was thinking you meant how much time does it take, but maybe it's also money. But in terms of time, if you ship products and you're doing it by ocean, I think like 45 to 60 days is like a good ballpark amount. I think typically that's what it is for us. If you're doing air, I haven't done air in a while because it is more expensive, but that could be like a couple of weeks or a lot shorter. In terms of the cost, it is very much going to depend on how many units and so forth. But if you had a different angle to that, just let us know. Okay.
I see a few questions around the same topic, so we can answer one here about like how to form an LLC in the U.S., especially like if you live abroad. So there might be companies like LegalZoom that operate in different countries, so you can check that out. I'm not sure of the answer for LegalZoom specifically, but what I would do is find either a tax professional in your area that can get you a LLC in whatever country you're trying to sell in, or use a company like LegalZoom that's already established, and they offer that sort of, you can live one place and get an LLC in another. I just want to go to someone who's established, whether that's, again, like a person or a huge company like LegalZoom. Those would be my two ways. You obviously can do it yourself, but I'm a person that I would pay an expert to do that for me because they know what I got to file, and especially if you're doing it in two different countries, it's going to be a little bit of a little different of a process. So find an expert would be the best answer I can provide there.
Cool.
Sazi, to follow up, what Lenny was mentioning about the time it takes for your product to get through the fulfillment centers. If this is your first time your product is being launched, then nobody will see your listing, or at least it will be unavailable, and ads won't be spending on them. So if you have zero inventory available, people won't see your listing unless they have the link to that listing.
Makes sense. Oh, this is an interesting one. Kevin asks, can you recommend any KPIs when it comes to keyword search volume? There is no option in Jungle Scout to get something like a score. Good question. I think I did see another comment somewhere maybe that was something similar around like, oh, what's like a good amount of search volume and so forth.
Right.
So to kind of answer all of that, I would, if you're using filters, the filters that you do have is like a minimum maximum search volume for say exact match. I don't know that there are any specific rules of thumb. I often use like 500 searches as a minimum. For me, it sort of depends on how many, I'm just usually just trying to like filter down to a certain number of keywords. Like if I put in my product or do a reverse ASIN search, it might come back with like 800 to 1,000 keywords. I'm like, okay, that's just too many. I'm just not going to use all of those. They're not all going to be relevant. Then I'll like filter that down by seeing like, okay, if I put in a minimum of 1,000 searches per month, how many keywords is there? So I'll put in 1,000 and then I'll take a look at that. And now it's like, oh, now there's only, let's say 13 keywords as an example. And then it's like, oh, okay, now I need to drop that down. I'll see how many keywords is there if I put in 500 as a minimum. Sometimes it might even be like 300 or something like that. And then I would, do that until I've got however many keywords that I'm looking for. Maybe it's like, 100 keywords is the top 100 keywords. But yeah, that's how I'd go about it. But if you had to pick a number, I'd probably pick around about 500 unless that restricts your options too much, and then I would go lower.
Definitely.
Yeah. Otherwise, as far as like KPIs when it comes to a keyword search volume, I don't know if there's anything else I can think of to add there.
Yeah, it's mostly just, like you said, an arbitrary number to like really just weed out the keywords that are like, under like 300 monthly searches. You're just trying to get rid of those low volume keywords. But then there are, if you're in Keyword Scout, you can see different metrics, like ease to rank is one that's helpful. If you're just starting out, you want to find those long tail keywords that are going to be easier to rank organically, but also with ads. So hopefully like the bids will be less expensive to bid on. So you can also use that to sort of gauge the competition with keywords. But to your point for the demand of keywords, I think search volume is the best way of looking at it.
Perfect. Right. Any other questions that you see there?
This is actually a question I don't know the answer, but maybe anybody or you or anyone else in the chat could help answer MAZ on, can I unlock brand registry in the US with my UK trademark? That's a good question. I'm not familiar. I just don't have any experience with it.
Yeah, I feel like I've like seen or heard this discussion before, but I don't remember what the answer is. But yeah, that is a good...
Yeah, if anybody has experience with that, if you have a UK trademark or to say outside of US, can you get brand registry in the US with that? I kind of, if I'm guessing, I would say yes. I don't know. That's a good question. Sorry, I don't have any experience with that. This good game says, okay, yeah. Might just be following up. Okay. It's a good, you could actually ask ChatGPT for that answer. I bet he or she, the robot, can answer that one.
We'll ask the robot. Awesome.
Also, Drewski, the cost to trademark through Amazon, so through that IP Accelerator program, you'll find out if you actually just go to the IP Accelerator program website, I think it's in like their FAQs or somewhere, they list the maximum that these law firms can charge you. So like I said earlier, I'm not sure if you would have caught it or not, but Amazon has pre-negotiated maximum rates that these law firms can charge you. Last I checked, I think it was $1,500. And so that's actually a really good deal because they work with you to file it, but then also if anything were to happen, they're kind of there for you as well. So just check the website and they'll give you like the maximum, but a lot of companies are even under that.
Awesome. All right, so we'll wrap it up there for today. Hope you all have gotten a lot of value from everything that we've shared today. If so, let us know by giving us a thumbs up down below, and also consider subscribing to get more content and get notified when we go live and publish more videos on selling on Amazon.
Yeah.
Also, make sure to check out the deal that we mentioned earlier, and for anyone that joined later, we are running a special promotion, a New Year's promotion at Jungle Scout. So if you've been thinking about getting started on Amazon and with Jungle Scout, then now is a really great time to do that. So you can check out the link in the description below. But otherwise, happy selling, all the best with your own businesses, and we'll see you all in the next video. Take care.
See ya.